What's going on, Master Duel fans? James here again. Deck profile for you guys in terms of Reptilianne Season 29 deck profile. And with that being said, let us get into the deck breakdown for you guys. 2 Reptilianne Vipers, only 2. This is one of the ones that it literally does nothing in terms of going first, unless you're planning to synchro summon to some degree. And then randomly, when it comes to Reptilianne Viper, best going second or in any grind game situation. Taking Ghost Girl hand traps such as Ghost Ogre because she has a field effect as well, or even mechanical monsters, which are free real estates. Just they best not get to Hooli with an equip card to make sure the whole entire archetype is protected. And randomly against Kashtira is that Scareclaw, Kashtira, and Shangri-Ira can be stolen by Reptilianne Viper, and that's downright insane. 2 Lamia, this is your extender from the hand if they have a monster, and if all of my monsters I control are reptiles, this lets me free summon, change their attack to 0, and I take damage based off from their original attack. And then if she's sent to the graveyard because of Secret Material, I can turn 2 monsters anywhere on the field to 0 attack. And both effects are super hard once per turn, so basically one effect or the other can do both. And then same thing with Miami about super hard once per turn, one effect or the other can do both, which is during the main phase, if you have a reptile in your graveyard as a quick effect, you can send herself to the graveyard to make one monster your opponent controls become 0, and then if your opponent controls a monster with 0 attack, free special from the graveyard. Skyla, she's the biggest beat stick of the level 4 or lower Reptilianne crew. Skyla is basically Goyle Guardian, but built-in 0 attack. And then 3 Quaddle, that's your extender if you happen to control a dark reptile. And then this lets you also push by gaining more bodies on the field. If your opponent has more monsters with 0 attack, it makes it so that you have a lot of reptile options to some degree. And then when it comes to synchro summoning of a reptile monster, you can make Quaddle become a non-tuner so that you have access to Hydra and Melusine. And then Reptilianne Vasky, this card is clutch to some degree, because in case if I don't have any answers in terms of potential threats or bigger boards, with the help of the smaller Reptilianne support, I can make their cards become 0 and then drop Vasky by attributing their monsters most of the time, and then it's basically one-sided with the help of Vasky with a hint of spot removal of a face-up, which is outright insane. 3 Reptilianne spawn, banish a Reptilianne monster from your graveyard as cost, generate 2 Reptilianne tokens, not once per turn. Reptile Earth, level 1, no stats both ways. And then 3 Ramifications, the heart and soul of Reptilianne cards. When it comes to Ramifications, send 1 from your hand to the graveyard, then activate 2 of the following 3 effects. Search a Reptilianne monster, spell/trap, or does not target, change the attack of 1 monster your opponent controls to 0. That third effect can come up a lot, because most cards that have the built-in anti-target, like Chaos Max, as you guys saw from the last video, Ramifications came up clutch to some degree, so that if you do not have any other plays to take down bigger boards, Ramifications will help you get things going. And then Reptilianne Recoil, cards absolutely crazy in conjunction with Melusine. This lets you target one monster you control with no attack and one dark reptile in your graveyard, kill the first target, and reborn the second target. Basically, it's essentially like how you say Dragona Diagram / Circle of the Fire Kings, but dark reptile version to some degree. And then if your opponent activates a monster effect, and it doesn't matter where, if there is a monster they have with 0 attack, I get to target one of them, take control of it, and generate one Reptilianne token to their field. And then the honorary reptiles. Kage Tokage, basic, we all know what's up with Kage Tokage. Not once a turn, when you normal summon a level 4, free special, this card can't be used as synchro material. So to get around that thing, you got Exi Shoken and Link Shoken as well, to avoid the restriction of Kage Tokage. Masked Chameleon, you cannot normal this card if you happen to control level 5 or higher. So yeah, this card can conflict with Melusine and Hydra because you already got those on the field. Same thing with Vasky. It can be really annoying in the middle of the game, but at the same time, it's where if you're in a pretty good spot, where if you have plenty leftover 0 defense targets in your graveyard, then you should be a-okay off from Masked Chameleon. So the turn you use Masked Chameleon's normal summon effect, you cannot special other monsters except from the extra deck. The case is, upon normal summon, target one monster with no defense in your graveyard, special it out in defense, effects are negated. When it comes to monsters with no defense, in terms of reptiles specifically, you got Miami for the synchro of 6th line, Reptilianne Lamia, and Reptilianne Viper, and these tuners are meant for your Link summoning line, which is insane. Oh, and same thing with Nunu being revived all from either its own effect or Masked Chameleon because Nunu has no defense. When it comes to Nunu, by sending itself to the graveyard, this lets you Foolish Burial any dark reptile, and then if you control no monsters, most of the times it will never be any monsters at all because this is the card you want to use as the very first thing to free special from the graveyard, but banish it whenever it leaves. So to get around that banishing restriction, Exi Shoken is the way to go. But otherwise, it's normally no monsters or Ogdoadic monster for the free special. And again, it's normally no monsters at all. Use this card as the very first thing if you're not playing pure Ogdoadics. Monster Reborn, change your heart to Snake Rain. If this card resolves, you are literally on edge. Discard one card, set Foolish Burial for reptile monsters. Not once. And then 2 Viper's Rebirth. If you guys noticed it by now from this list, no Dark Charmer, no Wee Witch, because this list specifically is strictly for reptiles and nothing but reptiles. The case about Viper's Rebirth, and this is the reason why I don't play any other types but reptiles. If all monsters in your graveyard are nothing but reptile, target one non-tuner in your graveyard, special it out, and if you don't do anything to it, it gets killed during the end phase of this turn, and the reborn effect of a non-tuner is not once. So basically, they could have just worded this a long time ago about non-tuner reptiles, but who am I to judge on that one? Tactics Talent, Book of Moon, 2 enemy controller, card was seen half and half, it was decent enough, 2 Forbidden Chalice, 1 Cosmic Cyclone, 1 Call by the Grave, 1 Blizzard, 3 Infinite Impermanence. And of course, the extra deck, everything is in 3-ofs. Old Entity Hastor, the honorary Reptile Synchro. For some reason, as I said from the other video, that once again, I really do not see anything out of Hastor being a reptile. But it is what it is. So when it comes to Hastor, none of those effects are hard once per turn, which is if this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, equip this card from your graveyard to that monster. That monster cannot attack, also its effects are negated. When it comes to the usage of Hastor, this card comes up a lot. And then, if this card leaves the field while equipped to an opponent's monster by this effect, take control of the equipped monster. Well, that was equipped. When it comes to out of the 3 copies of Hastor being made, only 1 has came up for quite some time. So it made me think, I'm still going to keep everything in the extra deck because you never know what to prepare. And then 3 King of the Pharaoh Imps, the honorary Reptile, the XZ version. Soft once per turn, get a Reptile from deck to hand, doesn't matter what level it is, with a cost of detach 1. When it comes to King of the Pharaoh Imps, the second copy comes up a lot, but the thing is, I only had, originally, I had 2 copies of King of the Pharaoh Imps, but as soon as the season was over, I decided to craft the 3rd one and get it a one last match with that said reptile deck. So I thought, this is normally a 3-of, so you can get your search engine going. 3 Reptilianne Hydra, card is absolutely insane. First chance Hydra is synchro summon, does not target destroy as many monsters your opponent controls with no attack as possible, then you draw 1 card for each. So context is, the more monsters that my opponent has with no attack, Hydra literally acts as Raigeki, which is absolutely insane. 3 Reptilianne Melusine, card is the MVP of Reptilianne out of the 3 the most. Upon synchro summon, or if she was synchro summoned using only reptiles, the whole entire deck is literally nothing but reptiles. She cannot be killed by battle or card effects, and then once per chain, not once per turn, but once per chain, when your opponent activates a monster effect outside of the damage step, and it doesn't matter where, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, changes attack to 0. So this and Recoil, it's synergy. And Reptilianne Melusine on board, if my opponent were to have too many monsters on the field, you just literally constantly keep on making their monsters become 0 so that you generate too much advantage. And then the number of times out of the copies of Hydra and Melusine comes up, this comes up most of the time, only 1 Hydra comes up, and then most of the time Melusine in general, it's usually be at least 2 copies of Melusine. The second copy comes up on a very rare occasion, but at the same time it's where if my opponents do not expect to take care of Melusine, then it's basically game over. And then if for some reason Melusine gets outed by any shape or form of a card that isn't going back to the extra deck, if for some reason that she gets outed, she's literally king of the Pharaoh Imps. Get a reptile from deck to hand, doesn't matter what level. And then 3 Reptilianne Echidna, MVP. Upon link summoning, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, changes attack to 0. And then during your main phase, if your opponent controls a monster with no attack, add reptile monsters with different names from deck to hand up to the number of no attack monsters your opponent controls. Also, the turn you do this, you cannot special from the extra deck except reptiles. And once again, the whole entire extra deck is reptile, so the restriction does not matter at the slightest. And then when it comes to Echidna, there were games in which I have multiple reptiles on board. There were times in which, like, let's say for some reason my opponent decides to hand trap me or like imperm or like try to negate the attack change to some degree, or whenever there are times in which if I already expect to see a lot of monsters that my opponent has with no attack, basically that's just saying I'm not going to trigger anything because I already made those monsters attack become 0. And again, they tend to hand trap a whole lot. I'm just going to okay, I'm going to link summon a second copy of Melusine just so that I never used the search effect all this time. So when it comes to expect the unexpected, if they don't prepare on how to counteract against Echidna specifically, this is basically I'm going to win the game. And as for the usage of Reptilianne Echidna, definitely all 3 copies came up a lot. And if there's any changes out of this list I would make in the near future, Hyperia is definitely going to be in this list because he's a reptile and he's a free draw one, so card is nice. With that being said, James Polk here, coming to you fresh out of Season 29 as we enter Season 30 at the time recording that this video is getting posted, which we are at Season 30. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you haven't already, smash the notification bell to keep yourself constantly updated. And we'll catch you guys next time.